हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
प्रभु दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत।
श्रीनिवास प्रभु। हरे कृष्ण प्रभु। जय जय कृष्णा जय श्री गोविंद गोपी नाथा मदन मोहन जय राधे जय कृष्णा जय वृंदावन श्री गोविंद गोपी नाथ मदन मोहन श्यामा कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन कालिंदी यमुना जयो जयो महावा श्यामा कुंद राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन कालिंदी यमुना जयो जयो महावा केशी घाट वंशी भट्ट द्वादश काना जहाँ सब लीला कोइलो श्री नंदा नंदा केशी घाट वंशी भट्ट द्वादश काना यहाँ सब लीला कोइलो श्री नंदा नंदा श्री नंदा यशोदा जयो जयो सगा जयो वृषभानु जयो कीर्तिदा सुंदर जयो पूर्णमासी जय अभिरामगारी जयो वृषभानु जयो कीर्तिदा सुंदर जयो पूर्णमासी जय अभिरामगारी जय जय गोपीश्वरा वृंदावन माझा जय जय कृष्ण सखा बाटु द्विजराजा जय जय गोपीश्वरा वृंदावन माझा जय जय कृष्ण सखा बाटु द्विजरा जय राम घाटा जय रोहिणी नंदना जय जय वृंदावना वासी जट जय राम घाटा जय रोहिणी नंदा जय जय वृंदावना वासी जट जय द्विजापत्नी जय नागकन्यागाना भक्ति ते यहाँ पाइलो गोविंदा चराना जय द्विजापत्नी जय नागकन्यागाना भक्ति ते यहाँ पाइलो गोविंदा चरा श्री रासा मंडला जय जय राधा श्याम जय जय रासा लीला सर्वा मनोरम श्री रासा मंडला जय जय राधा श्याम जय जय रासा लीला सर्वा मनोरम जय जय ज्वाला रसा सर्वरस परकीय भावे यहाँ ब्रजते प्रचार जय जय ज्वाला रसा सर्वरस परकीय भावे यहाँ ब्रजते प्रचार श्री जाना पदा पदम Shri Janapada Padma Podiya Smara Dina Krishna Dasa Kore Nama Sankirtan Jayo Radhe Jayo Krishna Jayo Shri Govinda Gopinath Radha Namaha Jayo Radhe Jayo Krishna Jayo Vrindavan Shri Govinda Gopinath Radha Namaha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardha Kalindi Yamuna Jayo Jayo Mahama Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardha Kalindi Yamuna Jayo Jayo Mahama Keshi Ghat Bhamsi Ghat Dwadasa Pana Jahan Sab Leela Koilo Shri Nanda Nanda Keshi Ghat Bhamsi Ghat Dwadasa Pana Jahan Sab Leela Koilo Shri Nanda Nanda Shri Nanda Yashoda Jayo Jayo Gopagana Shri Dhamadhi Jayo Jayo Dhenuvachaka Jayo Vrishabhanu Jayo Kirtida Sundari Jayo Purnamasi Jayo Abhiranamani Jayo Purnamasi Jayo Abhiranamani Jayo Purnamasi Jayo Abhiranamani Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare, Jai Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha, Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jai Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha, Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jai Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari, Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari, Jai Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari, Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari, Prabhupada Prabhupada Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jayo Jayo Prabhupada। शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देव श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वैष्णभानु सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं, यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्री गुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। So today also we are actually celebrating the appearance day of Shri Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha. So there is something called Brahmotsav. Those who are not aware, I will explain. There is a great festival called Janmashtami, which is like throughout the world, the day Lord Krishna appeared on this earth planet, and that's Janmashtami. But then Lord Krishna, in the form of deities, he appears in different temples on different days, like the installation date, when the Lord when the Lord was installed in the temple. So in a way that is also called Janmashtami, because Janmashtami is Krishna's appearance. So Krishna's appearance in a particular deity form in a particular temple, the day they are installed. So technically it's Janmashtami, but then different temples have different dates when the deities are installed. So that is called Brahma Mahotsav, the appearance day of the Lord. And I am not very unfortunate that I am not there today in the temple to glorify Shri Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha. Very mercifully, those who have been to Farmington Temple, they are the presiding deities, and they very mercifully made their appearance 4 years back in 2018. And those who serve there, they are their life and soul. So today's Kirtan was, I'm personally not there. So it was dedicated to glorify them and expressing our gratitude to them for appearing in our lives. So today is actually the last day, and I haven't taken the darshan yet. But today we have offered them a new dress, a new garlands, everything fresh. And yesterday I was in the temple and I got their darshan, and they were so happy. I have seen every year Brahmotsav festival, and they are so happy. So we are discussing the 6 things that are detrimental towards Krishna consciousness. This is verse number 2, Nectar of Instruction. Atyahara, Priyasascha, Prajalpa Niyamagraha, JanaSanga, Laulyam cha, Sadbir Bhakti, Vinashyati. These are the 6 things that are very detrimental to our advancement in Krishna consciousness. And Atyahara is engaging our senses inappropriately, other than in Krishna service, and includes overeating, overaccumulation, anything. Atyahara leads to prayasa, where we work very hard, and because we work very hard in this material world, we don't have sufficient time to cultivate our Krishna consciousness. And then prajalpa is when we speak things that are not pleasing to Lord Krishna. Speak or hear words that don't glorify Krishna, and that is also very detrimental. And then niyamagraha is not willing to follow the rules and regulations which are very conducive for our Krishna consciousness, or to follow rules and regulations that are ritualistic and that are not favorable to Krishna consciousness, but just as a ritual one is following. And then today we will discuss JanaSanga and Laulyam. JanaSanga is giving up the association, giving up non-conducive association, and Laulyam is greed for material things. So JanaSanga, first we will discuss JanaSanga. Mayavadis, so there are 7 kinds of unfavorable association. One is called Mayavadis and atheists. So these are the 7 kind of people we should try to avoid. One is Mayavadis. Who are Mayavadis? Mayavadis are those who say God does not have a form. They say the form of Krishna is made of Maya. The form of Krishna is illusion. They say that Krishna's form appeared from impersonal conception, and after Krishna disappears, the form cease to exist. So For them, Krishna, Shiva, or Brahma, or Ganesh, or Durga, they're all one and the same. All of their forms are Maya. So they are called Mayavadis. So one should carefully avoid, and this philosophy was propagated by Adi Shankaracharya, who is actually Lord Shiva, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. But he propagated this philosophy because he wanted Kali Yuga to progress, and he wanted people to become more and more atheistic. So this is one kind of unwanted association. If we associate with such people and discuss or ask them how to make spiritual progress, or so one should not reveal one's mind, and one should not inquire confidentially, like how to chant, why to chant, or any confidential inquiry should not be made to anybody other than devotees of Lord Krishna. Then atheists, naturally, they um, don't believe. They say we are material, and with body we die and we cease to exist, and we are just a bunch of chemicals. So their association should be avoided. Then sense enjoyers. Sense enjoyers association should be definitely be avoided, because we develop the qualities of whom we associate with, and those who are very much eager to enjoy their senses, when we live with them or associate with them, we will develop similar desires, and that will be highly detrimental to bhakti. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that sense enjoyment and Krishna consciousness goes ill together. Then there is those who fond of sense enjoyers. So there are people who are very much absorbed in gratifying their senses. There are people who are very much interested in gratifying their senses, and then there are people who are not gratifying their senses, but they like the association of those who are sense enjoyers. They should also be avoided. Then there is woman. Woman means opposite sex. Whatever gender we are in, opposite to that. That association should be avoided, because Bhagavad Gita explains man is like woman is like fire and man is like butter. So when butter comes in contact with fire, butter will melt. So even if we are very strong in our spiritual practices, if we associate with opposite sex, it will melt. So not conducive. And opposite sex, I mean, unless we are pure devotees, opposite sex creates a kind of illusion, and then one becomes bodily conscious, and one fosters unhealthy desires. So that association is also JanaSanga. Then womanizers, or those who are very much attracted to opposite sex. For example, a male should avoid the association of other males who are interested in women. They are male bodies, still they should be avoided. It is described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that association of those who are womanizers is more dangerous than women. So at any cost, one should avoid those who are attached to opposite sex. And likewise, a female should avoid association of those females who are interested in males, vice versa. So one should avoid the association of womanizers. Then hypocritically devout, or those who are hypocritics. Hypocritical means duplicitous, or who show off a lot. They are not spiritual, but they may try to show off, or those kind of people. And the ill-behaved, foolish outcasts, or people who don't have proper sadachar. Now, for the sake, if a person is simple, for the sake of preaching, one can associate with those who are sense enjoyers, those who are fond of sense enjoyment, those who are women, those who are womanizers, those who are hypocritical, those who are ill-behaved. All these association becomes favorable if our mood is to give them Krishna. And so there we don't take their association, but we are focused on how to help this person, whatever the qualities that person has, how to make him or her favorable to Lord Krishna. How can this person advance? And that is actually very, very conducive. So association of those, but one should make sure that they are favorable to Krishna consciousness. Anybody who is favorable, one should try one's best to give them Krishna. And even if it is unconducive, one should depend upon the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, that may they protect us. Because when our purpose is pure, that I am here to serve, I want to serve, I want other people to get benefit. When our purpose is pure, rest assured Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will help us. Srila Prabhupada would say that this material world is not a place for gentlemen. And Prabhupada would specially say, there is no place for brahmacharis in America, Prabhupada would say, because the culture is a little bit not very conducive. But then Prabhupada says, but still one can continue without any difficulties by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because we are doing God's work. We are trying to serve Him. And if we remain sincere and if we keep praying to Him, then despite all difficulties, He will protect us. Because ultimately, it's up to Krishna. And Krishna can do anything. So we just have to remain sincere. And then this association is okay. But make sure that they are favorable. One should not associate not for the purpose of Krishna consciousness and still associate it. That is certainly not conducive. Then little explanation of these different kinds. The Mayavadis do not accept the eternal name, form, qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. They say everything is illusory. Lord's name, Lord's form, Lord's qualities, Lord's pastime, everything is illusion. So they consider the living entity as a product of Maya. And they say that, we are also product of Maya. Therefore, in their opinion, the living entity has no eternal existence. Basically, they say there is no Jiva. They say we are God. Living entity is illusion. We are God and we become God. So quite demoniac philosophy actually. They do not consider devotional service eternal. Rather, they consider it a temporary method to cultivate knowledge. So then they will also chant, they will chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra also, Mayavadis. But then their conception is by doing this, I will become Krishna or I will become Lord Rama. And there are many examples of such people, even in the scriptures in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So highly detrimental. All the Mayavadi conclusions are opposed to the principles of devotional service. Therefore, by associating with Mayavadis, one's devotion gradually disappears. If one associates with such people, he will, it is very detrimental. So there was one person, he would attend Bhagavad Gita classes and he stopped coming. And then I went to his home and I asked him that we are missing you and why did you stop coming? And then he said that my uncle is a philosopher and he is a highly realized soul. And he told me that God is not Krishna, there is no God. And God is Brahman and God is light. And he told me that I am God. So when I am God, why do I need to go to Bhagavad Gita classes? So basically his uncle was his Asat son for him. And that's why he got deviated. So one has to avoid such association. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Sari Raka Bhasha Shule Hoila Sarvanash. Everything will be destroyed. Hoila Sarvanash. If one listens to a Mayavadi or impersonalist, everything will be destroyed. When we hear Sariraka Bhasya. Sariraka Bhasya is a book written by Adi Shankaracharya on the impersonalistic philosophy, Mayavad philosophy. So Mahaprabhu said anybody who hears that, he will be destroyed. So one has to be very careful not to associate at any cost with Mayavadis. And especially Mayavadis, unless one is Uttamadhikari, it is recommended that you don't even associate with them, even for the sake of preaching, because that is going to negatively impact us. Then there is sense enjoyers. Association with sense enjoyers is harmful. Those who are always busy associating with sense enjoyment are filled with blasphemy, envy, and violence. So sense, those who are very much attached to sense gratification, they will be blasphemous, they will be envious, and they will be violent people. The cause of envy is I am the enjoyer. I want to enjoy, and somebody is causing an obstruction for my enjoyment, or somebody is not giving me enjoyment, or somebody is giving somebody else enjoyment, or fill in the blanks. So envy arises because I am the center, I am the enjoyer, and others are not letting me to become the enjoyers. So basically, desire for sense gratification leads to envy. And that's why every living entity in this world is envious, because of material desires. And they become violent also because they become envious. So when their desires are unfulfilled, then they try by various means to fulfill their material desires. And sometimes they can use their power, position, and they can use violence. They can use whatever it takes to be the enjoyer. And they will become blasphemous also. They will blaspheme because they are not getting their desired enjoyment. So, yeah. Uh, so their association should be avoided. Then quarrel, argument, and hankering for sense enjoyment is their life. So they constantly try to enjoy. Dharam Janam Sundari. Enjoy the wealth, enjoy women, and enjoy followers. The more they enjoy, the more their thirst for sense enjoyment increases. And it gets flared up. They enjoy and they start feeling that I'm the enjoyer. Then what Maya Devi does is she gives them some more fuel to enjoy a little more, and they further feel that I'm the enjoyer, I'm the enjoyer. And the moment they don't receive the enjoyment anymore, they become like envious snakes, like serpents. Why am I not the enjoyer anymore? So the more one enjoys, the thirst to enjoy further increases. The sense enjoyers do not get time to speak or hear topics of Krishna. Their mind is constantly meditating on how to be the enjoyer, how to get back my enjoyment. I am the center. So they lose all interest in hearing topics about Krishna or in speaking about Krishna, because they are just too absorbed in sense gratification. Whether they engage in pious activities or sinful activities, the sense enjoyers always remain far from knowledge of the self. Sometimes they may act piously also, like good work, service attitude. So these are like pious activities, helping others. So they may be they whether they engage in pious activities or sinful activities, um, their internal motive, they still cultivate the mood of being the enjoyer. And hence they are violent sometimes, they are blasphemous sometimes, they are envious all the times. Vishaira anna khaile malina haya mana, malina mana haile nahe Krishna smaran. And it is said that one should avoid eating food cooked by those sense enjoyers. When one eats food offered by the materialistic men, one's mind becomes contaminated, And when the mind is contaminated, one is unable to think of Krishna properly. So to be able to think of Krishna, the mind has to be purified. With a purified mind, one can think of Krishna. But when one becomes absorbed in sense gratification or desire for sense gratification, one cannot properly think of Krishna, even if one tries. It's only by Krishna's mercy that one can think of Krishna. It's not by artificial means or by practice. No, Krishna has to approve it. We have to qualify ourselves for that. And it is said that one should not eat the food cooked by materialistic people, because those desires will enter us. The consciousness of the person who cooks the food, his or her consciousness enters into the food. And the person who eats it will get that consciousness, and his mind will become contaminated. And then he cannot properly think of Lord Krishna. That's why there is emphasis on being careful if one wants to become steady in one's Krishna consciousness. So by all means, one should avoid those who are sense enjoyers. But if you see, on the other hand, Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he would associate with all these people. They were drug addicts, they had illicit relationships, they would eat flesh and other items. So, and they would do gambling, and they were all kind of sense enjoyers. But Prabhupada made them beautiful Krishna conscious devotees. So he was not taking their association. Taking association means he was not taking inspiration from them. Like one Mataji, she was looking for a job, and then she was working very hard, and she was not able to get the job. And then she would go into the LinkedIn page of her friends from her college, and she would lament, oh, this friend of mine is manager now, this friend of mine has opened a new company, and this friend of mine is this, and this friend of mine is this. And see, I am simply a housewife, and I have no job and no earning, and simply taking care of children. So she started lamenting, and that is actually a satsang. One has taken the bad association, because one is engaged in the highest welfare work of serving Krishna, and one is not seeing one's great fortune, but one is lamenting. And so taking association is inspiration. Taking association give rise to material desires. I mean, I'm not against work as much as you can, but the lamentation for less money, less position, these are all material desires. Ultimately, whatever we are entitled for will come to us according to our own karma. But nonetheless, one has to work. One work as a matter of duty. Okay, this is what is requirement, I should do it. But then the principle of comparison, it's actually association means we are inspired by bad association means we are inspired by their material qualities. So if one eats food cooked by materialistic people, or if one has desire for sense gratification, one cannot properly think of Krishna. Then there is woman, do not associate with women. On the other hand, when woman is engaged in sadhana bhakti, she should not associate with men. Association with the opposite sex is very inauspicious for the advancing devotee. I know one devotee, he is in Grahasthashram. He is probably 55, 60 years old. You may know him, some of you. His name is Anand Vrindavan Prabhu from Chapati Temple. Chant 64 rounds every day. Very sincere Grahastha Vaishnava. But he would not talk to women. Any woman come and talk to him, he said, no, I don't talk to ladies. So great. Only for the sake of preaching, one can keep very, very strictly Krishna in the center, and then one should not speak anything other than Krishna. or Krishna conscious talks. If Krishna is the center, if Krishna is in the center, it will be all right. But one should not try to kind of impress them, dally with them, speak intimately with them, or anything done in a mood of enjoyment will be highly detrimental. So associating with them is very inauspicious for the advancing devotee. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the Supreme Lord himself, set a perfect example. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, even if I see the doll of a woman, my mind becomes disturbed. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and obviously he's Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's setting an example of how strict one should be. So he was very strict with rich people, and he was very strict with women, and he would not at any cost associate with them. Just a doll, like you go to shopping complex and there are some dolls that are wearing clothes, these clothes shops where they want to sell their clothing. They put certain caricatures or dolls. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, even if I look at a doll, my mind becomes disturbed. So this is the nature of opposite sex. So naturally, Prabhupada says, lust and greed is there, and it's because we have been cultivating these desires since time immemorial. Prabhupada used to say, these dirty things are there in the heart. And it arises because of mode of passion. So, when one is free from sex desires, still one should not associate. The infatuation.
I have one question for you.
Prabhuji,
like as you mentioned, we should not eat the food cooked by the non-devotee. But if suppose they are like starting the devotional service and we have a bhakti vriksha at their house and they offer the prasadam and like they offer the bhoga and then prasadam comes, so should we eat or?
Yeah, you can eat, Prabhuji. If they're chanting some rounds, at least 1-2 rounds, they are favorable, you can eat. Because some are very strict, some are not so strict. I personally don't eat unless they come to chant 8 rounds at least. I don't eat in their homes. But some devotees eat, but the principle is we don't want to displease them because they are favorable to Krishna. And actually, there may be a good possibility that it depends upon the modes. Like people in mode of goodness, even if they're chanting less rounds, their consciousness is relatively pure. But there may be a possibility that people in mode of passion ignorance with a lot of material desires, they may be chanting 10 or 16 rounds and their consciousness is more contaminated. So actually, it cannot be seen. So, but then the question comes, then how do we figure out? So you make some parameters. But in the end, for the sake of preaching purposes, it's okay to take risk. And before you eat, you pray to Lord Krishna, my dear Lord, please protect me. And again, I said, we are not qualified to live a pure life in this material world, especially in the Western world. But by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we'll be protected.
But Prabhuji, if we, say like it, they think in the mind like they are neophyte devotee, or so it's not a blaspheming kind of, because we are discriminating that thing, even though they are hosting the program at their house.
Yeah, discrimination is good, Prabhu, but at the same time, we should not show to them. That's why I said, for the sake of teaching purposes, we can compromise.
And if we are in some situation, Prabhuji, like where we are they offer us something, so can we pray to the Lord Krishna and then take it, or in that situation?
Well, again, for teaching purposes, okay, Prabhuji. But then if there are somebody who is not interested in Krishna consciousness and we want to maintain relationship with them, we don't want to displease them, and we know they're not favorable to Krishna, and still we are compromising, then that is not very intelligent. But if we are cultivating and our feeling is, if they're already chanting and if they feel bad, they may give up Krishna, then we are okay to risk our lives also, if it can help them in the Krishna consciousness. So that discrimination is all right, is good.
Okay, Guruji. Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
So the infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to a fellowship of men who are fond of women. So one may say that, like Prabhupada used to say, even a brahmachari may be attached to one's clothes or one's shaven head or etc. Or many people may be attached to many things. So there may be various attachments one can have, but none of the attachment is as strong as the attachment of a male with a woman, or vice versa. So, when those attachments are kind of very strong, then brings a lot of anxiety, a lot of misery, and becomes difficult to remember Krishna also. But what I have personally seen in Grahastha life is a very stable ashram, because the attachment or infatuation, whatever is there, it's there only for first few months, and then doesn't matter how the Prabhuji or how Mataji is, that infatuation no more exists. And that is actually a benediction, I think. And then they can peacefully remain in their particular ashram and practice Krishna consciousness. But then the danger comes if one is attracted to women or men outside marriage, and that will be highly, highly detrimental. So in that way, opposite sex is very dangerous. But my personal experience, Grahastha ashram is not danger. It's actually highly stable ashram. Okay, so and then JanaSanga, conclusion of JanaSanga. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhav Gita. Having awakened, this is Lord Krishna speaking to Uddhava. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted from all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee remains happy and worships me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense gratification, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. When an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through loving devotional service, as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus, all material desires within the heart are destroyed. So, what Lord Krishna is telling to Uddhav, that a practicing devotee, he knows that sense gratification is not good, and sense gratification had led to misery in the past. And if I engage in sense gratification, I'll become miserable again. So one has that knowledge. One still, because of previous conditioning, may engage in sense gratification, knowing that I'm going to become miserable, but because of one's conditioning. But then one, after engaging in sense gratification, Lord Krishna tells Uddhav, one sincerely repent. Oh, what happened to me? Why did I do that? I should not have done that. I deserve to be punished. So in that way, one sincerely repents, and then, but because one has faith in hearing about Krishna and chanting Krishna's name, one continues the process of devotional service. And then one remains very strict, but once in a while again one may engage in object of sense gratification and then repent again. And this may continue for some time. And then because of continuous engagement in Krishna consciousness, the heart gradually becomes purified and one gets sufficient strength not to engage in those materialistic activities anymore. And one also get very deep realizations of how much suffering this form of sense gratification leads to. And finally, one overcomes those demands and becomes more and more steady. And by continuous practice of Krishna consciousness, one gradually become eligible to go back to Godhead, go back to Lord Krishna. So this is a path practically Lord Krishna is describing to Uddhava and is practically seen also. That's how it will go. The conclusion is that the association of pious and sinful persons who are bereft of Krishna consciousness is undesirable. On the other hand, the association of persons who are sinful yet devoted to the Lord is desirable. So sometimes one may ask that this person is in mode of goodness, he has a helping nature, he is very well behaved. On the other hand, this particular person, he is a devotee, he chants, but he sometimes is too passionate, or sometimes he speaks rash words. He's not very refined. So why should I associate with him? Let me associate with those who are not devotees, but who are very refined. But that is not true actually. Rather, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that even if a devotee is lacking personal good behavior or many other things which are material by nature, but product of mode of goodness, even if a devotee is lacking, still one should associate, his association is desirable because he has faith in Lord Krishna. And just by that faith in Lord Krishna, as Krishna explains to Uddhava in Uddhava Gita, he will gradually purify and he will go back to Godhead. But those people who are simply in mode of goodness, but they don't have faith in Lord Krishna, they are going to either remain in mode of goodness, or most likely because of their association, they may degrade to mode of passion, ignorance, and their continuous cycle of birth and death. So we don't look at one instance. Okay, at this instance, how does a devotee behave and how does a materialist behave? But we know, no matter how the devotee is, because he's engaging Krishna consciousness, guaranteed Krishna is going to take care of this devotee. He will gradually and surely give up all his bad habits and walk straight in the path back home, back to God. So anybody who is chanting, who is hearing about Krishna, associating with devotees, no matter what is our current condition, Lord Krishna says, guaranteed he is going to come to me. Krishna takes full control because Krishna is all merciful. So one should always look for association of devotees over refined materialist also. So this is JanaSanga, association, avoiding association of Mayavadi, sense enjoyers, atheist, those who are fond of sense enjoyment, opposite sex, those who are fond of opposite sex. Because people who are fond of opposite sex, they are going to speak about opposite sex. And we should not hear about women also. That is also very dangerous, because when we associate with those who are attached to women, it will increase our dirty things, Prabhupada says. So one has to be discriminated. Okay, what is conducive? Is it helping me? Is it not helping me? But again, for the sake of preaching, one has to take risks. And Krishna will protect. Then last is Laulyam. Very short, but last topic for today for us also. The meaning of the word Laulyam is restlessness, greed, and desire. Laulyam means desire for material things, greed for material things, or one becomes restless because one has unfulfilled desires. So these are all different forms of Laulyam. Restlessness is of two kinds, restlessness of the mind and restlessness of the intelligence. The chitta or mind has the propensity for following the dictates of the senses. So senses demands. Eyes demands, tongue demands, skin demands, mouth, ears, they all have their own demands. So these are kind of restlessness of the mind. I want it, I want it, I want it. When the mind follows the dictates of the senses and becomes absorbed in a particular subject, attachment or aversion arises. Then if mind gets what it wants, attachment will develop, and the other side of attachment is aversion. Aversion will develop. Like when we are attracted to beauty, then when we see beauty, we admire it. And when we see things which does not possess beauty, we avoid them. So in that way, when we follow the demands of the senses, attachment and aversion will arise, and both are material conceptions. Because at both places we are not able to see the spiritual identity and the hankering of the soul for Lord Krishna. Rather, we are attached, we become moha, illusion, or we reject because of aversion, and we remain on a materialistic platform. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Lord Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Kavi Hastani, Suni Chaiva Sopakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. One sees with the equal vision all forms of living entities. Dog eater, elephant, and male and females, animals, one sees with an equal vision. But when one comes under the control of attachment and aversion, then one will naturally become illusion and aversion, and these are blocks on the path of self-realization. In order to regulate Laulyam in the form of restlessness of the mind, one has to take shelter of Goddess Bhakti Devi. So when attachment is there, aversion is there, and when we realize that I am a degraded soul, I am fallen, then one takes shelter of Bhakti Devi. My dear Lord Krishna, please help me. My dear Srimati Radharani, please help me overcome these discriminations, these bodily conception of life. Please prepare me, make me suitable, so without disturbance, I can serve you. So when one takes shelter of Bhakti Devi, then one can overcome. One can regulate longer. The instruction of Bhakti Devi is this. When the cause of the mind's restlessness is sense gratification, and this restlessness is the main obstacle in the practice of devotional service, then all activity, sensual activity, should be dovetailed in the service of the Lord, and the attachment to sense gratification should be transformed into attachment for the Lord. Then the mind becomes fixed in the devotional service by taking shelter of that attachment. So this is similar principle of turning lust into love, which is when we have attachments in this world, we try to dovetail those attachments in Krishna service. We bring Krishna in the center, and we divert that love and that attachment towards Lord Krishna, Lord Krishna's pastimes, Lord Krishna's associates, and we try to focus there on Krishna, on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then the material aspect will weaken. So Laulyam is actually greed, and Laulyam for material things needs to be transformed into Laulyam for spiritual progress, Laulyam for bhakti. To hear about Krishna, to remember Krishna, Laulyam for these things, Laulyam for chanting Krishna's name, And um, that's how we make our propensity spiritualized. Unhealthy Laulyam is desire for bhukti siddhi, bhukti mukti siddhi kami shagale ashanta. When one desires bhukti mukti siddhi kami, he becomes unpeaceful. Shagale ashanta. Shanta means peaceful. Ashanta means and he comes into anxiety. What are those? Desire for bhukti. Bhukti means sense gratification. Mukti, impersonal liberation. I want to be liberated because I am suffering in this world. So I don't like this material world. So I want to go. So the purpose of liberation is not I want to go and serve Krishna, but I am suffering, so I want to become liberated. Still, I am in the center. So that mukti is detrimental, is an improper greed. Then bhukti is I want sense gratification and I am desiring for that. Then we'll become violent, blasphemous, envious when we have that desire to enjoy. Bhukti mukti siddhi. Siddhi means I need some um, um, mystical perfections. I need to show off. I need to prove others that I am great. So I need some great qualities which others don't have. And that's how I can distinguish myself as better than others. And this is siddhi or material perfections. And kami is material desire. So one who has desire for bhukti mukti siddhi, he becomes shakalya sattva. Krishna bhakti ataeva, but somebody who is only attracted to Krishna bhakti, he becomes completely peaceful. Okay, so one's mind, one has to take shelter of Bhakti Devi and divert the Laulyam for material things towards greed for Krishna Naam, Krishna's form, Krishna's flute, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's associates, and that is the right use of Laulyam. So that's all. We have come to the end of the second verse, and the third verse discuss about the 6 things that are favorable to one's Krishna consciousness. So that's all I have for today. If there's some discussions, we can take now.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
What is a restlessness of intelligence? I did not understand that.
Yeah. So
I know restlessness of mind, I understood, but just want if you can give me some example.
well, Prabhuji, they are interconnected. Mind senses demands mind, and mind request intelligence that I want to enjoy this, and intelligence makes plans. Okay, maybe I should go there. Maybe I can enjoy in this way. Maybe I can manipulate in that way. So the mind becomes restless, supporting the intellect becomes restless, supporting the mind. Is it all right?
So you mean to support the mind demand, intelligence get corrupted
like
into.
Prabhupada gave an example. I want to steal. So mind says, yeah, money is very good. And intellect says, you go and steal in the night time when cops are not around. Try to find the code, use your intelligence, and the intelligence is very restless. How do I make things work? I really want, mind says I want to steal, and intellect associate. But the right use of intelligence is to discriminate that mind demand for sense gratification is not good. Speaking lying is not good. Or any form of sense gratification is not good. So I won't do it. So that is right use of intelligence.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other discussion? Okay, wonderful. Very grateful for this wonderful Sangha. My obeisances to all of you. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhuna evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Ananta koti vaishnavendra ki jai. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.